Hi friends, today we are going to listen to the story of Pied Piper. Remember the story? No? Then let's revive it. Many long years ago, there was a small town called Hamlin, which stood on the bank of the river Weser. The town was very famous for miles around for its great riches and wealth. But the inhabitants of the town were very greedy people and miserly and cared for no one but themselves. The lords and noblemen became more greedy. They spent long hours counting their money over and over again. Storekeepers also charged too much for their goods, and landowners forced the small farmers to give up all the food which they had grown, so that the poor farmers had nothing left for their families. As the noblemen grew richer and richer, they became more and more selfish and greedier. In fact, you won't believe the town folks became so greedy for wealth and riches that they decided to get rid of their pets. They thought that the food spent on food for their pets could swell their money up, and the time they spent looking after their pets could be spent counting their gold coins. One morning they took brooms and sticks and drove every dog and cat out of the town. Soon the town became overrun by a great plague of rats, for there were no longer any dogs or cats left in the town to catch and kill them. Thousands and thousands of rats converged on the town, roaming the streets in fierce packs and gnawing through the wall, doors, shelves and furniture in their search for food. Hordes of them entered the shops and storehouses and houses, eating everything in sight. The town folks were powerless to stop them, for they had driven away their pets. The rats were very strong and fearless. They were taking over the whole town. So the town council called an important meeting. Various ways of killing the rats were tried, but even the strongest poison did not harm them. What to do now? The councillors were still pondering the problem when a young stranger carrying a flute entered the council chambers. The young man stepped forward. "If you will give me 100 gold pieces, I will rid your town of rats," he said confidently. The councillors discussed the young man's proposition and finally agreed to his demands. "But we will pay you only after the rats have gone," the mayor said. Satisfied with the arrangement, the young man left the council chambers, playing a strange tune on his flute. The sound of strange music could be heard throughout the town, and as if by magic, the rats began to emerge from every direction, running to follow the young man, who continued to play his flute. Big rats, small rats, brown rats, black rats, old and young rats all came scampering to follow the piper. The town folks looked in amazement. They could not believe their eyes. The piper went through the town playing his flute, and still the rats followed, thousands and thousands of them, until he reached the river's edge. Even when the piper jumped into the river, the rats did not hesitate, but followed close behind. The deep water covered the rats and drowned them, every last one of them. Calmly, the piper made his way back to the town to collect his gold pieces. The joyous townsfolk cheered and cheered as the piper returned through the streets. But when he entered the council chambers to collect his gold pieces, he got a surprise. For the mean and greedy noblemen, instead of giving him 100 gold pieces, offered him only one. They refused to pay him any more. They were so greedy and mean. The piper was then very angry and left at once to plan his revenge on the greedy people. Stepping into the streets, the piper once more took the flute from his pocket and put it to his lips. What a sweet sound it made! Once more the townsfolk heard the sound of many feet hurrying from all directions to follow the piper. But this time he was followed not by rats, but by the children of the town. Laughing and chattering happily, they skipped along behind the piper, enchanted by the strange music. The parents ran from the houses, begging the children to return, but the children were so fascinated by the sound of the flute that they paid no heed to the frantic cries of their parents. Through the town they went, boys and girls of all ages, until they reached a towering mountain. The piper blew a high note on his flute, and immediately a door opened in the side of the mountain. The children went in, and the door slammed shut. It seemed to the townsfolk that the earth had swallowed up their children, for they were never heard of nor seen again. The Pied Piper escorted the children to a land of happiness and plenty, where the sky was always blue and the sun always shone. The children learned to be kind and unselfish and lived together in the land of plenty for many, many years. And the town of Hamlin was strangely quiet, for there was no sound of children's laughter. The Pied Piper had taught the townsfolk a very valuable lesson, for they lived in sadness without their children for the rest of their lives. They understood that if they had not been so selfish and greedy, and if they had not cheated the piper, their children would still be with them. So what is the lesson you have learned? That you should not be selfish and you should always honor your words. Now you remember the story of Pied Piper. How was the story? Comment and let me know. If your subscription button is red, then make it grey by pressing it. See you next with another interesting story.